In the heart of Cebu, far away from bright lights and famous stages, lived a teenage boy whose life was shaped by struggle. His home was small, modest, and often filled with uncertainty. Some days there was enough food, some days there was not. Electricity was not always guaranteed, and luxuries were something he only saw on other people's screens. But what he did have was a family that loved him deeply and a dream that refused to die. From a very young age, music became his escape. While other children played with toys, he sang. He sang while helping his parents with daily chores, while walking through narrow streets, and while sitting quietly in the corner of their home. Music was not just a hobby for him. It was a lifeline. When life felt heavy, his voice carried his pain away. When hope felt distant, his songs brought it closer. His parents noticed something special early on. This was not just a child who liked to sing. This was a voice that made people stop and listen. Neighbors would pause outside their home when they heard him singing. Friends would ask him to perform at small gatherings. Even strangers felt something when they heard his voice, though none of them could imagine how far it would one day travel. Despite his talent, life in Cebu was not easy. Opportunities were limited, and dreams often had to wait behind survival. There were days when he questioned whether music could ever be more than a comfort. He saw his parents work tirelessly, sacrificing their own dreams to keep the family going. Guilt sometimes crept into his heart. Was it selfish to dream of singing on big stages when his family struggled just to get by? But every time doubt appeared, his voice answered it. Singing was the one thing that made sense. It was the one place where he felt strong, confident, and alive. And deep inside, he believed that his voice had a purpose, even if he did not yet know what that purpose was. One evening, while watching videos on a borrowed phone, he came across performances from Britain's Got Talent. He saw ordinary people step onto an extraordinary stage and change their lives in minutes. He watched judges react with shock, joy, and tears. He saw the golden buzzer pressed for those who moved hearts, not just impressed ears. That moment planted a seed in his mind. What if that stage could be his stage? The idea felt impossible at first. Britain was thousands of miles away. Auditions cost money. Travel cost money. Even dreaming about it felt risky. But dreams have a way of growing quietly until they become impossible to ignore. With the support of his family, who believed in him even when the odds were against them, he decided to try. They did not have much, but what they had, they gave. Savings were stretched. Help was asked for. Sacrifices were made silently, lovingly, and without complaint. Preparing for the audition was not glamorous. There were no vocal coaches, no expensive equipment, no studio sessions. Practice happened at home, sometimes with background noise, sometimes by candlelight. He practiced not just singing notes, but telling a story through his voice. He wanted people to feel what he had lived. When the day finally came to stand on the Britain's Got Talent stage, his heart pounded like never before. This was not just a performance. This was years of struggle, hope, and sacrifice condensed into a few minutes. As he walked onto the stage, the judges greeted him warmly. They asked about his name, his age, and where he was from. When he said he was from Cebu in the Philippines, curiosity filled the room. When he spoke about his life, his family, and how much singing meant to him, the audience grew quiet. There was something about his humility, something about the way he carried himself. He did not come across as someone seeking fame. He came across as someone grateful just to be there. Then the music began. From the very first note, the atmosphere changed. His voice was powerful yet gentle, emotional yet controlled. It carried pain, hope, longing, and strength all at once. The room seemed to hold its breath. Conversations stopped. Judges leaned forward. Audience members stared in disbelief. This was not just a good singer. This was a storyteller. As he sang, it felt like the world disappeared. Every lyric came from a place deep within him. You could hear his struggles, his dreams, and his love for his family in every note. It was the kind of performance that does not need translation. Emotion became the language. One judge's eyes filled with tears. Another shook their head in disbelief. The audience began to react before the song even ended, clapping softly, then louder, as if they needed to release the emotion building inside them. When he reached the final note, silence followed. That kind of silence that means people are trying to process what they just experienced. Then the room exploded. The audience rose to their feet, cheering, applauding, shouting his name. The judges stood up too, clapping with genuine admiration. The young teen stood there, overwhelmed, his eyes wide, his breathing heavy, unsure of what to do next. The judges began to speak. They talked about how rare it is to hear a voice that feels honest, how talent like his cannot be taught, how his story made his performance even more powerful. They praised not just his vocal ability, but his heart. One judge spoke about how music is meant to connect people, and how he had done exactly that. Another mentioned how the entire room felt united by his voice, regardless of background or language. And then came the moment that changed everything. One of the judges looked at him, smiled, and said that some performances deserve more than words. They deserve belief, and then the golden buzzer was pressed. Golden confetti rained down from above as the audience screamed with joy. The young teen covered his face, tears streaming down as he tried to understand what was happening. He dropped to his knees, overwhelmed by emotion. For a boy who came from so little, this moment meant everything. The golden buzzer was not just a ticket to the live shows. It was validation. It was proof that his voice mattered, that his struggles were not invisible, that dreams born in small homes can echo across the world. As the confetti fell, images of his family back home flashed in his mind, the sacrifices they made, the nights they worried, the faith they had in him. This moment belonged to them as much as it belonged to him. The performance quickly spread across the internet. Millions of people watched, shared, and commented. Viewers from different countries were moved to tears. People wrote about how his voice gave them hope, how his story reminded them not to give up. He became a symbol of possibility. Back in Cebu, his family watched with disbelief and pride. Neighbors gathered to celebrate. A boy who once sang quietly in a small home was now being heard by the world. But what made this story truly special was not just the golden buzzer or the fame that followed. It was the reminder that talent can come from anywhere, that poverty does not define potential, that sometimes all it takes is one chance and the courage to take it. As he moved forward in the competition, the pressure increased, but so did his confidence. He carried his roots with him, never forgetting where he came from. Every performance was a tribute to his journey, his family, and his homeland. Even those who did not usually watch talent shows found themselves invested in his story, because this was not just entertainment. This was human connection. His voice had silenced the world, not by being loud, but by being real. And that is why this story matters. It reminds us that behind every viral moment is a lifetime of unseen effort. Behind every success is a trail of quiet sacrifices, and behind every powerful voice is a heart that has felt deeply. Here on Story Sprout, we believe stories like this deserve to be told, shared, and remembered, because they inspire us to look beyond appearances, beyond circumstances, and into the true potential of the human spirit. If this story moved you, take a moment to reflect on your own dreams. No matter where you are, no matter what you have or do not have, your voice matters too. Sometimes the world